If there's one thing I've learned from travel, it's about taking the best from everywhere and incorporating that into your own life and trying to make your life the best that it can be. And so I think that's the biggest part of travel.
Welcome to the Bucket List Life Podcast with Trav Bell, the world's #1 bucket list expert. Bucket List Life's mission is to help you get off the treadmill, stop Groundhog Days, hack your habits, and live a regret-free life. Because we know life's way too short not to live your bucket list life. So please welcome your host, Trav Bell, the Bucket List Guy.
Hey Bucket Listers, welcome to another episode of the Bucket List Life Podcast. So stoked that you could join us for another episode. And first up, thanks so much for your feedback, guys. It's the subscribership is going up, the views on YouTube is going up, and the feedback is coming on strong. And for the majority, it's been pretty positive. In fact, it's been really positive. So, guys, thank you so much for once again tuning into the Bucket List Life Podcast. And I'll tell you what, we've got one hell of a guest here. Second time that this man has been on the Bucket List Life Podcast. We did this, I think it was pre-COVID. Ralph might want to, correct me on that, but he's got some new stuff in the pipeworks. And look, I'll just dive straight in. Ralph Velasco, mate, you are called the Continental Drifter, which I think is one of the best personal brands getting around. It rivals the Bucket List Guy. I think we're on the same page there, but the Continental Drifter, mate, thanks so much for jumping on the Bucket List Life Podcast again.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you again.
Now, where in the world, you've just come back from some travel. Where are you in the world right now?
Yeah, right now I'm in Chicagoland, where I was born and raised, and so I base myself here. I'm nomadic, so I mostly am traveling the world, leading my tours, organizing my trips, doing speaking engagements. But right now I'm back in my home base in Chicago.
And you're writing books as well. We're going to get into all of that right now. So what's changed since last time we spoke? Because you have a photography background, right? And you were doing photo tours. Tell us about what you were doing and then why the change in that.
Yeah, so I've been organizing, leading small group trips around the world for the past 16 years full time, coming up on 17. And it's a long time. And I've been done over 120 international trips with groups around the world, over 1,200 people, clients. And I do a lot of public speaking. I've written quite a few books. And so, as I get older and the more traveled I am, the more I think about slowing down. Part of it has to do with, as we get older, we slow down. But also it has to do with being more intentional about taking in the places that I'm traveling to. Especially as a photographer, I think we're the worst because we go to these amazing places and we do nothing but see the place through the viewfinder of a camera. And, I come back from these incredible destinations and I've got the receipts, I've got the passport stamps, I've got the pictures and video, but I often wonder, was I really there, at least mentally? Yeah, I was there physically, but, did I really take it in as well as I could have? And so as I get older, the more I'm appreciating that mindful and intentional type of travel.
But it's interesting because, and the reason, you can see why I've got Ralph on, right? So as you may or may not know that I'm going full-time digital nomad. I'm going to do a bigger, longer solo podcast on this and give everyone an update. But the short of it is I'm going full-time digital nomad in about a month's time. I'm still here in Ocean Grove, Australia. But yeah, I'm going for it. So
good on you.
You sounded very Aussie when you said that, mate. Good on you. But, mate, here's the interesting part. That's really interesting because I would have thought that posting, photography through your lens And then even posting actually makes you more present, more mindful, because you're focusing on the cultural experience. You're zooming in, you're not glossing over. So I would have thought it would have been the opposite, but you're saying no, as a photographer, I'm seeing stuff through the lens, and I could be even more mindful if I wasn't looking at experiencing everything through the lens. Interesting.
No, you're exactly right. And the truth is, it's all about balance, like anything. It's
Right.
balancing that, capturing the photographs while we're right there, having those memories, because of course we want to have some of those. We can't remember everything in our heads. So having the physical photographs and video is great, but also balancing that with putting the camera down. I wrote a book. One of my first books was called 101 Tips for Developing Your Photographic Eye and More. And the last tip in the book, the 101 tip, is put the camera down. And as I think about that, and as I go through this more, the exercises of being more mindful and intentional, I think maybe that should be the first tip in the book. Is that we go out with that idea that we're going to be intentionally putting the camera down. And I even recommend
That's a good tip. That is really cool. I've got something to say about that, but please keep going.
Sure. And setting something like a timer for yourself every hour or two to actually do that, to remind yourself, I'm putting my camera away, I'm putting my phone away, and I'm just going to soak it in with my mind's eye, my 5+ senses, and we could talk more about that. But yeah,
I love that, and that's so. It definitely needs to be included as that 101th tip, because you're so right. Because you look at, for instance, dance parties, concerts these days, right? And the kids are just like, boom, live streaming it, straight to, I can't get it on TikTok fast enough, and now you've got stand-up comedians. You've even got, like DJs. You've got some bands even saying, and there's a system for putting your putting your phones away, so you get to experience it. And because that's the visual experience you want to have at a concert, right? You don't want to be just there to show off to your friends who are sitting right next to you at the concert. Like, what are we doing? How mad does this have to get? But we all find we're robbing ourselves of the experience for the likes and loves on socials. And I think that's such an important, that's a TED talk right there.
Yeah.
That's your TED talk, mate. Because the split of attention of the experience, and maybe you've got to be a bit older to really get this, but the split of the experience versus, sharing the experience. Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's got me thinking.
Yeah, I think as I should speak for myself.
Because we got to journal. We got to journal our memory, because my memory's probably it's probably worse than most. But it's good for journaling. It's good for documentation. Mind you, guys, if you've seen some of Ralph's, check out Ralph, because he's like not just an Instagrammer, TikTok guy. He's like award-winning, photography here. So it's a different story when you go out with a camera versus layperson like me, mate. So you're like full setting all this stuff up, and there's a lot more that goes into your photos than the average Joe's. But yeah, speak to that.
Yeah, I think that having the pictures is important. We're hardly going to go somewhere and not take pictures, but I think it's about that balancing act of making sure you're getting those pictures, but you're also having the real world experiences.
Half and half, or something. Yeah,
and you're not just seeing everything through the viewfinder of a camera, which will always put something between you and the subject and the, whatever you're photographing, obviously the camera. And it's just,
and you're robbing yourself of all the other senses that go along with the experience, aren't you?
For sure. And one of the books that I wrote is about the 5 senses. It's just called How to Be a Mindful Traveler.
Oh, you've literally got a nose and an ear, and if you're watching this, guys, you'll get it. But put that cover up and touch and experience and feel. Yeah. So you kind of got the 5 senses right there on the cover. And what Ralph's showing us right now is the front cover to his newest book. What is it called? The
This
Mindful
one's
Traveler.
called How to Be a Mindful Traveler, and it's by deepening your travel experiences through the 5+ senses.
Okay, let's go there.
Yeah.
Let's go right into that.
Yeah.
So, how can you be more mindful as a traveler, and what does that even mean?
So when it comes to the 5+ senses, what I recommend is that you set a timer for yourself on your phone, probably, and maybe every hour or two. And it's just meant to remind you to stop, look, listen, see, feel, touch, taste what is happening around you. And that is going to allow you to absorb the place physically as opposed to just brushing over it. What I was going to say earlier is that, as a younger traveler, I think most of us are about checking that bucket list off and doing as many things as possible and saying that we've seen and done as much as possible. And that's a great goal.
We've all been guilty
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
And it's nice because, everyone
Yeah.
wants to have more experiences, try new things and different things. And that's wonderful. But as we get older, like I said, I think we slow down a little bit, both physically and mentally, but we also start to appreciate I start to appreciate having deeper experiences than a lot of shallow experiences.
See, okay, to put a pin in that, it's really interesting. I didn't think this is going to be so personal. So thank you. Because I'm about to embark on what I said, like I'm going to start traveling full time, and everyone's like, all right, what does that look like? Oh, you're moving to Bali. No, what I'm saying is I'm actually setting up 1 to 3 month, probably 3-month hubs around the world, whether it be Airbnbs or, through a local travel agent. I'm feeling about 3 months sort of hubs around the world. One will be, Spain and maybe the Americas somewhere, a bunch of different places, South America, etc. And what I want to do, the intention that I want to do is set up these 1 to 3 month hubs, but on weekends when I'm not working, I'm darting off over the border, the closest borders to, cross off some more countries on my bucket list, stay in third world countries and dart off to first world countries on weekends. So the running costs of life are a hell of a lot less. But people are asking, well, so you're moving to Bali? No. How long are you going to be there for? Well, my answer has been until I get sick of it.
Until I'm done.
Until I'm done, until I got the experience, and then I'll move on. I was like, whoa, how can you do life like that? Well, just that's what feels right. And I want to take the opportunity. I'm not on a rush, on some sort of bucket list rush that we've all been on, and I've been guilty of that. I've jumped over the border, got the passport stamped, and come home, and got about my cultural experience has been about as deep as a puddle, and it's sad to say, and I feel guilty around that, wanting to go back to some of the, in particular Uruguay, where Dad and I went from Argentina over the bay there, over into Uruguay, went to Colonia and just hung out there for half a day, jumped back on the ferry. And it's like, really, you got to experience Uruguay? No, you didn't.
I did the same thing. I did the same thing there.
got the stamp, got a,
Well,
and I know people who are doing that. They're on a mission to just, tick off 196 countries on their bucket list. And we're just talking about travel here. Guys, that bucket list is it's one of 12 categories, on the My Bucket List blueprint. Travel is only one of the 12, but it's certainly a big part of our bucket list. But I'm all about what Ralph's saying right now. I'm all about being way more mindful. That, slow down, be present, be mindful, and get the full experience. So using your 5 senses, mate, please, I just wanted to rant there for a little bit and, share some of my own and how this is so relevant to what I'm about to embark on, mate. I think it's unreal. It's definitely a TED Talk.
Yeah, I think so. And I've got the real good outline ready for that. But, all those 5 different senses, and I especially come back to taste, because I come from a restaurant background. I'm a 3rd generation restaurateur. I've owned restaurants myself. we all eat 3 meals a day, hopefully. And so we appreciate, food. And I go to some of the best food cultures in the world on the places that I travel to. So food's an important part of travel and my trips. But I find myself, typically I'm eating alone or I'm with a group of people on my trips, So when I'm alone, what's the first thing you want to do is pull out your phone, start texting people, researching, watching a video, who knows what. But what are you doing? You're missing out on the meal. And, here's you are in this, let's say in this beautiful place that's known as a food culture. And you're on, I'm on my phone looking at something, completely missing out on the meal right then and there.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things. Yeah, we can do 2-3 things at a time. We can drive while listening to a podcast, while eating a hamburger, but we can only really do one thing well. And, the other things that we're doing are completely, subconscious
Well,
that we're
the
doing.
interesting thing there is that's mindfulness at its core, right? Is compartmentalization and literally just doing one thing at a time. That's what I tell if you just do one thing at a time, you'll probably get it done rather than trying to multitask. And if you just do one thing and do it till it's done, and then move on to the next thing. And this happens in business. This happens with being, a parent. This happens to, the same with health. So it's natural that it applies to travel as well. Mindfulness is being present and not trying to multitask and eat the hamburger and put on the makeup and drive and take a call and do all the rest. Yeah, I just got a flashback because when I was in Argentina, funnily enough, I was recommended this steakhouse from another bucket list blogger, and I went Argentinian steak, some of the best in the world, right? Argentinian steak, and he said you got to go to this steakhouse and have grass-fed Argentinian steak from the freaking highlands of blah blah blah, and sit there have a Malbec red wine.
Oh yeah.
And I sat there, I was early. I went there through the subways and trying to find myself, trying to get through all the local transport system there. It was a complete nightmare. But I sat there by myself eating my steak and I thought, shit, I want to share this with people. And I did what your whole book is about, and I know TED Talk will be about. I just went, no, I'm just going to hear by myself, hardly anyone else in there at that point in time. I was early. I'm going to drink my wine. I'm going to really be conscious of what I'm doing right now. And mindful, I guess, to use that phrase. So I sat there, ate every little bit of steak and had the wine, and I'm just like happy as a clam, sitting in the corner by myself with my big steak knife. It's got the logo of the restaurant on it, and I'm just sat there and I had an empty steak. Now you can take the photo. Actually, I did one before I tucked in and went, just get one, and then I did one after, but not, I wasn't filming myself during it. And I remember how good that thing was. I remember how good that wine was as well. But I had to consciously go, stop.
Yeah, because you actually savored it. You really tasted it, felt it in your mouth. Well, you think about, who made that wine, who raised that cow,
the story.
All the story behind it.
Yeah,
and it adds something different to your trip.
Yeah, the cow's name. I got so much. The cow's name was Nancy, if I recall, and no, but it was an amazing experience, and that's actually I've got a background in personal fitness training. Did that for over 20 years, and we're always saying if you want a great way to lose weight, tone up is mindful eating. Mindful shopping is like when you actually rather than just rush down the food, stop yourself, try not to multitask and taste the food.
Don't
have
shop
the experience
when you're hungry.
of it. Yeah, don't shop when you're hungry. That's it. Mindful travel. So what other tips have we got there?
So the other books that are part of this, I bundled these 3 books that I wrote last year into their own book, and it's called, which is the title of the series, The Mindful and Intentional Traveler. And it's got the 3 different books in here. So a complete copy of all 3 books. So
Now,
this
we've got all
isn't,
that. We'll chuck that in the show notes, guys. This is
yeah,
a good resource. This is a really good resource.
yeah, and this is probably not a book you're going to carry around the world with you because it's a little bit thick, but you can get all 3 of the books individually, which are much smaller and easier to travel around with. But the idea behind, also part of the idea was to have in the second book, the travel activity book for adults, which is a gratitudes edition.
Very
So the first
cool.
one was affirmations for travel. These are gratitudes. But this one's got mandalas, which are the adult coloring pages, word searches, mazes, crossword puzzles, inspiring quotes, adult coloring pages. Plus, it's got a bunch of journaling pages because you had mentioned journaling earlier.
Yeah, cool.
So,
And that gratitude stuff, being gratitude, mindfulness, intentional. I love that you've got that. Someone's gone silly on Canva there, mate. You've gone nuts there.
a little bit.
I love that. So you've run trips, you've orchestrated trips, and what are you doing on the trip side? What have you done? You've taken people around for photography tours. What are some of the best experiences that you think where people have just been blown away by?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I've been doing this for 16 years. I started out more photo workshops, photo tours. I've kind of eased away from that. So now they're more cultural tours where we've got our smartphones with us, so we are taking pictures. But I'm also trying to incorporate this idea of being mindful. And so on my recent trip to France that I was telling you about, I gave everyone a copy of the smaller book, The How to Be a Mindful Traveler with the 5 Senses. And each day we spoke about a different sense. And today we're going to concentrate on taste, and tomorrow it's touch. And, so it's about going and, just feeling the 11th century walls of this castle that we're staying at and the people who built this place, and so it was, it's just about being intentional and appreciative about absorbing the place and not just doing a surface, scratching the surface. So coming back with a much more intense experience. So
I'm feeling a collab here at some stage, man. I'm liking where this is headed.
Absolutely.
Very cool. And so you're running trips. You're still running trips, but now it's really less about the photography side of things. We should rebrand smartphone to dumb phone at some stage, right? Because I'm sure it makes it stupider. But you want to develop this into retreats. You're kind of doing that already. Where are you going to take this mindful travel? Of course, we've got the TED Talks, but yeah, where do you see this going? And the other question is, what's the point? What would you love to say from a TED stage? What's the idea we're spreading?
Yeah, the idea is to get people to slow down when they travel and to stop trying to do everything, do more with less. Again, when I first started out, I couldn't wait to touch every country, try everything, however short it was, that was my, thing to tick off the list. But as I get older, as I get, slow down a little bit, I am so much more appreciative of just sitting in a cafe and watching the world go by, or sitting on a bar stool in a restaurant in Europe that bar stool's older than the United States of America or Australia, and just taking that in. And I think
I'm going to ask you some
important.
questions. Sorry to jump in there. All right. So, Best place to people watch? Go. Well, in your experience, because I love people watching.
Yeah, one of the best places is Jamal El Fna Square in Marrakesh, Morocco. I love markets, so I think markets almost anywhere are the best places to people watch.
There you go.
Yeah,
and does that couple with a good coffee experience? Where's your one of your favorite? You're a coffee drinker?
I love coffee. Yeah.
Yeah, good man, good man. I thought I liked you. And that's honestly one of the, like, I joke about it with my family that, no matter where I am in the world, and I've traveled with what I do, and I'm sure the listener has as well, and the watcher of our YouTube right now has as well. But I'm a big coffee guy. I love, love, love getting up in the morning. If I haven't been in a place before, I love finding out where that coffee is for me. And not just the best coffee, but having that coffee experience where I hopefully bump into some locals, have some conversations. I spent 1-2 hours doing that. But it's the adventure in the search for the coffee as well. One of the best things, coffee shop open, because I'm normally coming from Australia. I've normally got, jet lag. So I'm up at whatever hour, and I'm normally first to a coffee shop wherever I go. But I'm like Googling best coffee shop. So I'm one of these guys that goes through the reviews. I'm like, like really deciphering where I go. So I want to have a great experience. Where's a good coffee, top coffee experiences that you can remember? And I want to serve this as, I want this podcast to serve as inspiration for people too.
Yeah, two of the best, three of the best coffee places I've been have been Costa Rica. Cambodia, I think, has some of the best coffee I've ever tasted, believe it or not. And Mexico as well.
Right.
A lot of it has to do with the way that they prepare the coffee, which can be different around the world, of course. Different types of devices that they use. Obviously, the different beans and climates that they're grown at.
Yep. Very cool.
But I love little mom and pop places. I don't love the chain places.
Don't even get me started on Starbucks and what Americans have done to coffee. What Americans actually think of coffee. Don't even get me started on that one. No, 100%. Best bars that you can think, best bar experiences for what you've...
Spain.
Spain. Yeah. You didn't even hesitate.
Yeah, because it's all about the bars, and the tapas bars, or what are called pinchos or tapas, which are the little plates that you get of some different regions of Spain. They're either free or they charge for them, but you typically get them with a glass of wine or a beer that you order. They'll give you a little dish, something to cut the alcohol. But Spain is all about having a drink and a tapa at this place, and then hitting 3 or 4 more as you work your way home from work, or you go to meet some friends or on a weekend. So it's a cultural thing. And, and the food there is just out of this world. Every bar is different. They're all mom and pops. So to me, Spain is one of the best places for that.
So imagine I've just stumbled into this podcast or onto this YouTube channel, and it's all about bucket list. I got this travel expert. He's talking about mindful travel. I'm in North America. I'm just new to traveling. I'm going to hit a few different countries in Europe, let's say. What are your best tips, for them to be, they're excited. They're going to go to the tourist spots. And we're carrying on about mindful travel. What is your advice to those sorts of people? I dare say that you come across them, quite a bit. What are your sort of top tips? They land in Spain, and your advice, your coaching around, they want to get the best bang for buck, the best experience. What are you telling them to do?
Well, typically find something like an Airbnb or a small boutique hotel, as opposed to, again, a big chain. Something that's maybe a little bit outside of the center, so it's more in a neighborhood where you can perhaps get to know the locals a little bit, know what it's like to live like a local for a while. Yep. Other experiences that I recommend people have is to do things that you would normally do at home, but on your trip. Now, you're going for 3 months or longer on your trip, so you're probably going to have to get a haircut there sometime, or a shave or something. Women, want to get their nails done or a massage or something. Those kinds of things that you would normally do and you sort of take for granted at home, do those things when you're traveling.
That is so cool, man. I never thought of that, and I've done that. I remember getting a haircut in Cuba, and it was like one of the best experiences, and they were all carrying on, and I had a mohawk, so they all thought it was funny. But I got the razor and the whole bit, and it was just such a good experience. Interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Keep
just
going.
do those normal things that you would do at home, do them overseas, because everyone gets their haircut, does their nails, etc. We're all the same like that.
Very
Just shopping,
cool.
going out and shopping and, making a little event out of that. Taking a cooking class or doing a market walk with a local chef or a local food blogger who knows about the food, how to buy it, how to prepare it, how to eat it. Those to me are the locals' experiences that I'm not going to get from a book or, you got to be there to do that.
You're right. Like going into a local, even 7-Eleven, or a local supermarket, you can spend hours in there, can't you? Going, what the hell? I can't read it. This kind of looks like what we've got at home.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, then you go back to America and you've got 100 different types of that particular product.
Yeah.
Again, don't even get me started. It's interesting that if we're talking American Australian, and there's some crazy stats of how little passports per capita. We might have even talked about this last time. Passports per capita that Americans have. What is it? 380 million, 350 million in America, and they hold the least amount of passports per capita in the world, apparently.
Yeah, I believe that. Unfortunately. Yeah, I think it's just because we've got such a big and varied country that a lot of people don't find a reason to leave it, which is sad. But to me, the best things that I've learned have been from being overseas and getting different perspectives, hearing from different people, learning about their ways of living and working. To me, that's the best education.
Speak to me, and I think, again, I'll have to fact check this, but I think Australia is on the flip side of that. Even though it takes us 14 freaking hours to get anywhere, and we are on a pretty nice island, us and New Zealanders have the most amount of passports per capita in the world. So it's interesting. Talk to me about this movement, and if you're aware of it or if you're not aware of it, for possibly having a compulsory, I mean, it's never going to happen, but the movement, the push to have a compulsory gap year, between high school and possibly university or work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I studied in Spain when I was in high school. That's how I got hooked on Europe and on Spain specifically. I was a volunteer in Peru and Venezuela the next 2 summers. I just studied in Mexico City for a summer learning Spanish. So I think gap years or months or semesters are great things. And a lot of kids missed out on them during the pandemic. I had some nieces and nephews that, had semesters abroad planned, and those got screwed up with COVID, unfortunately. So, they missed out on quite an experience that I don't know that they'll be able to make up.
What do you reckon the impact of something like that? Let's say there was a compulsory gap year. How would that affect, let's say, American culture?
Oh, I think it would be a fantastic thing because it would just open people up to different perspectives and points of view and ways of living and other opportunities and options. And, I think, most people in most countries, and unfortunately probably Americans are the worst, are, think that wherever they live is the best,
Yeah, of
and
course.
what we do is right. And why isn't everyone doing it? And if there's one thing I've learned from travel, it's that that's not the case, and I'm from the US, but it's about taking the best from everywhere and incorporating that into your own life and trying to make your life the best that it can be. And so I think that's the biggest part of travel, and having a gap year would introduce people to places that they probably never would have gone, and to different perspectives and ways of outlooks on life that I can't imagine would do anything but help us.
And tolerant, we're probably a lot more appreciative, tolerant, etc., etc.
Yeah.
No more wars.
Racism,
hello. But anyway,
religion.
Anyway, don't get us started, mate. What's next? What's next for travel? What's next for the books? what's next for your retreats? I know you're moving, what's next for you?
Yeah. So coming up, I've got one thing I did this past year in 2024 was I went to not Australia. I was there a long time ago, but to Antarctica. And
You did it.
past year, I finally got to Antarctica.
That is big on my list.
That was something.
How did you? Okay, so who'd you go with? What sort of a tour did you do?
Yeah, so I organized and led my own trip now through a big company. Through a company.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't do it. Arrange everything.
You didn't sail the boat.
Yeah.
Okay.
I rode my own boat. Yeah, no. Antarctica is one of those places where you obviously have to go with a big company, and so I brought a smaller group onto a bigger a ship, but it was actually the smallest ship in the industry, with only 67 clients, and I don't know, maybe 30 crew. So it had the smallest client to crew ratio in the industry, smallest boat at 67 passengers. But this is a proper icebreaker from Greenland. So this is a proper ship. The thing that was very different about our trip, though, was that we flew down. So we flew from Punta Arenas, Chile, down to the continent of Antarctica.
Wow. Where did you land? Because the landing strip's a fair way away from the coast, isn't it?
No, it's right near the water.
Okay.
It's the peninsula that's just south of the South American peninsula, right across the Drake Passage there. There's a peninsula that kind of, Antarctica goes up and South America goes down. And so you land on that peninsula. It's a proper airplane with like 75 seats, and you get lunch on the way, flight attendants, everything. So it's a proper airplane. And then you land down there at a military base, and then you take a short shuttle drive to a Zodiac, which then takes you out to the ship, which you can see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then you spend 5 nights on the ship sailing around the Antarctic Peninsula. You come back, fly back, and you're back in Punta Arenas.
Did you do a lot of jumping onto the ice in between?
Yeah. So what's nice about this, number one, there's a treaty down there where they've agreed that only 100 people can get off at any one landing point maximum.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that why?
Yeah.
That's why they've got all the restrictions about hitting the land. Right.
Yeah. If you're on a bigger ship, you may not even be able to get off the ship. Or you have to get off in stages, or they, can't get off at all. So it just depends. So I couldn't imagine going down. Number one, I'm a sailor, but I had no interest in sailing the Drake Passage for 2.5 days each way, which could be very violent. Doesn't have to be, but it can be. One of the guys on my trip, he was a second attempt to get down to Antarctica, because on his first attempt, someone died. He must have been walking down the hallway of the ship and hit a wave and got thrown against the wall and got a head injury or something.
Well, mate, I after this call, in your own time, of course, I think you need to share these details with me about this Antarctic. I like the idea of flying down there, getting dropped on the ice. I like that.
Really nice. And
did you get an opportunity? Because on my bucket list is to kayak, preferably with my dad. You can
kayak down there as well.
Did you kayak with your crew, or could you do it with your?
I didn't, because that's a special thing that you had to sign up for, and there's only 10 people that were able to do it, so they were taken. But if you're a kayaker, unbelievable. Yeah, it looks so fun. My roommate that I shared with, he did it. Loved it.
Cool.
That was something.
Wow.
Antarctica was a hell of a trip. You really feel like you're off the beaten path. You get down there. We didn't see one other ship the whole time. And there's a lot of ships down there. There's probably 60 or 70 ships down there during the season, which is their summer, our winter, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. So we didn't see one other ship. There's only 65 people on our ship. So super intimate. We could get off everywhere. The whole ship could get off anywhere. And then there's sometimes everything's dependent on the weather, of course. So if the weather's not great, you may not be able to get off the ship. I think that might have happened once. But otherwise, if there's no landing points, which there aren't always landing points, you would just take a cruise around all the icebergs and shore and see the seals and penguins and whales and all
Unreal.
kinds of stuff. Absolutely fantastic.
That's a big one on the bucket list, that one, that Antarctica. Mate, you'll seriously give me the details after we're done.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I'm gonna hook that up for sure.
Sounds great.
So that was the big one. Where's next? Where's next in terms of your trips? What's the big one on the list?
Yeah, you had mentioned Cuba earlier, and Cuba was one of my big trips. I mean, it's probably the most popular trip I've ever done. I've done it 19 times. And I've got my 20th trip coming up in February, 21 in April. But, for the U.S. citizens, we can't just show up in Cuba like everyone else can. We need to have certain paperwork and things because of our embargo that we have. So that's actually a good thing for me because we can handle all that paperwork. And so it's become sort of a nice little niche for me. So I got 2 of those trips coming up. Then I got northern Spain, northern Portugal, southwestern France, where we stay in an 11th century castle. That's a property that's perfect for these retreats because it's got 270 acres of grounds. It's a proper 11th century castle. Like if you look in the phone book or you look in the dictionary under the word castle, there's a picture of this place. Yeah, so really special place and great food. Do olive oil, or we do walnut oil tasting, caviar tasting, see 20,000-year-old cave paintings, really cool stuff like that.
All in a day's work with the Continental Drifter. I tell you what, mate, we could go on and on and on, and this is just going to become a personal discussion. We could talk for the next 6 hours, I think, about all this stuff. Guys, if you haven't been, I know you're still engaged, watching and listening to this, make sure you follow Ralph. What's your best website too, mate?
Yeah, so continentaldrifter.co is where everything is. You can always look for me at Ralph Velasco on most of the social medias or / the Continental Drifter on Facebook or the YouTube channel / Continental Drifter, which love it if people would check that out. I got a lot of great videos up there and a lot of good information about all my trips there too. Yeah.
Awesome, brother. Awesome. And let's keep going back and forth. I want to find out about Antarctica. I want to find out about your tours. Maybe there's a collab that we can do because I'm looking at, possibly doing retreats as well. And you've inspired me. It's cool. I love it. And I think this mindful travel thing is a serious TED Talk, dude. So thank you.
Great. And the bucket list book coming up. So I'm very excited about this new sort of chapter and no pun intended. And we should definitely talk about, doing some kind of a collab or meeting somewhere in the world. I mean, it'd be crazy not to.
I'll be ending up in Spain at some stage. I can tell you that. All right, mate. Look, as I said, we could go on, guys. That is Ralph Velasco, the Continental Drifter. Follow him on all the socials, of course. Engage. You know what to do. Buy the books. I think you can see where this fits. It's not just about ticking off the list. It's about the full experience. And, for me personally, I've got a lot of great tips and a lot of, deep think about what I'm going to go into. Very personal. So thanks, guys. Love, heart it, tick it, follow it, share it, give us a review. Thanks so much for your feedback. Until next time, thanks for tuning in. Bye for now.
Thanks so much for listening to the Bucket List Life podcast with the world's #1 bucket list expert, Trav Bell. For more great content, go to www.thebucketlistguy.com. We'll see you next time.